Hey, welcome to the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast. Your questions answered by the pros you trust, presented by Pro Exteriors. On today's episode, we are answering the question, when is it time to replace my siding? Actually, this is a two-parter, so you'll get part one today. Part two will come out next Friday. For the eagle-eyed and eared among us, you might realize that the content of this episode seems familiar. That's for good reason. We are revisiting episode 6 of the show, and it's for good reason. We feel like as we enter into the fall season, our houses have made it through last winter, the heat, the extreme heat of this summer, and you might be looking at your house thinking, oh goodness, my siding is looking a little bit worse for wear, and you're wondering, is it time to replace it or repair it? And so the hope is that this episode and next week's episode will help you make the right decision. Let's hop right in to part one of Is It Time to Replace My Siding? This is the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast. Do you have questions about an upcoming exterior contracting project? We've got answers. Welcome to the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast. Aaron, how is your day going so far?
Wonderful. It's a little steamy outside, a little warm. But I think fall weather's on its way, and kind of excited for that.
All right, just wanted to break in here real quick. I'm sitting here editing this week's episode and realized that we had an audio issue when recording that we didn't catch until after the fact. So we've done our best to fix it, but every now and then you'll hear this seemingly random static that is not your device. It's not your speakers. It's on us. We try really hard to get things right, but we are not perfect. And we felt like the content in this episode, the information that Aaron shares, is totally worth just those few instances of static. So anyway, if you notice it, that's what it is. You're not going crazy. All right, let's get back to it. We got that preview of it last week, and I was really enjoying that. And now here in Kentucky, we have a heat advisory. It's going to be pushing 100 degrees before the end of the day, and yep. I'm not about it. I'm ready for fall.
Same here.
Well, audience, if you are tuning in, I'm not sure if that's how podcasts work, right? I don't think you really tune in. You had to find us. But if this is the first time you're watching or listening to an episode, each week we tackle a question that we have been asked by one of the homeowners that we work with, or maybe it's a question that we as consumers have asked ourselves. And then we try to find a pro, somebody with experience. More times than not, it's Aaron, but we try to bring on other team members from Pro Exteriors. We'll bring in other outside experts over time to have a really honest conversation in hopes that when we conclude, we all feel more confident with whatever endeavor we have with regards to our exterior remodeling.
Yeah.
With that said, Aaron, here is today's question.
Okay.
When is it time to replace my home's siding? Now, much like every week, that's a pretty loaded question. It's not a real simple answer. So I want to walk us through just some different topics that will help me as a homeowner figure out when it's actually time to replace the siding. So I was hoping we could start with, what are some of the signs that I need to be looking out for? Or maybe I have an exterior specialist come out and look for of deteriorating siding? Or how do we go about that? Like, what's the best way to figure that out?
Okay. So normally, like, the easiest signs you're going to see is obviously like your siding is cracking, or, it could be, if it's wood siding, your paint's chipping really badly. You can see huge gaps. Your siding is curling. Siding could be blowing off. Because there's such a wide variation, just like with roofing, in as regard to like the materials that we have in our territory. Every siding is going to kind of come with its own variable of like when it's ready. We have materials that are kind of shorter term materials, even though they're considered a lifetime material. They tend to have a kind of a lower lifespan than others. Some materials realistically with proper maintenance can last almost forever. It's not unrealistic to see a house that has, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old siding on it. Sometimes it's part of a multi-layer process there, but with proper maintenance, there are tons of materials out there that work great and have been maintained really well and can last forever. But normally we try to look at it kind of the same way as we do with roofing. When you have kind of some interior issues going on, normally that is coming from the exterior. So, cracks in your siding, dents in your siding falling off, paint chipping really, really badly. Sometimes it could be animal infestation, kind of forces the next conversation. Or it's kind of a breakdown in your flashing, which is allow watering to kind of get past that exterior covering and into the inside of your house. So all of those things can kind of be the catalyst for the replacement. But sometimes we can repair, sometimes we can't. So.
And now a word from our sponsor.
You heard it here, folks. Local Milton contractor Aaron from Pro Exteriors, seen all over town. Nobody knows what he's doing. Has he lost his mind?
Okay. When you're offering something this good, you've got to be ready. Pro Exteriors rarely offers a deal this good.
Let's get back to the show. Are there any other, you mentioned water, like actual visible water getting into the home. Are there any other things that could happen under the surface that, as a normal homeowner, I'm not walking around my house every day looking for things? Are there other hidden factors that sign that it needs to be, that is time?
So again, very dependent on what type of siding you have. Most plywood, the glue that's used to hold plywood together, when it gets wet and that moisture has to escape, it shows brown. So if you're on the exterior of your house and you see like some brown staining or anything on your siding, a lot of times it can be brown staining in your soffit. We deal with roof leaks all the time right at the end of the roof, that the actual leaks show up as brown stains in the soffit. And that's kind of the kickoff to make the original call. But yeah, so staining can kind of be a really big thing. We see it a lot at the beach with specifically like wood siding or hardy siding, or any side of siding that kind of like sits flat against the house. If the improper house wrap was the original product was like an improper house wrap, we oftentimes, as soon as we pull that old siding off, we've had houses that literally every piece of plywood on the entire exterior is completely rotten. So you would be surprised how often we get into situations like that where we actually pull the siding off and the entire exterior of the house is rotten. There were no exterior or interior signs that show that. So you can hide a lot with siding. Sometimes you really don't have any signs. It's just a matter of like, it's older and, you're tired of having like your certain sidings painted every 3 to 5 years. So.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that the fact that you have seen instances where there's been no external signs or suggestions that there's anything going on.
Yeah.
That leads me to another thing I wanted to talk about is just the sheer age of some of the material. So I'm assuming in those instances where you found issues where like the plywood underneath is bad, was that just the homeowner was ready for a change and you happened to find it? Or was it really like, hey, this has been on here for 20, 30 years. We want to go with a new look?
Yeah. I mean, some of it, a lot of times that's with like a wood siding, where people they don't want the maintenance that comes with wood. Or you're kind of hitting that maintenance cycle where, you've had it painted a couple times over the last 3 years and, you're spending kind of like several $1,000s every time, or up to $10,000, $15,000 every time you're trying to get the exterior of your house painted. And knowing that once you paint it once, the next time, your life is a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter. So the original siding could have been 10, 15-year-old before you had to paint it the first time. And then it's going to go to, every, say, 7 years and then every 5 years. And it just doesn't last every time you have to recoat it. The caulking and everything starts to fail and everything kind of starts to build up, which doesn't make it kind of last a little bit as long as it should. So in a lot of situations, it's just people that have had, wood siding or an older siding and, they want to spruce the house up. They want to make it look a little bit more modern, or they just don't want the maintenance that goes with some other sidings. So we've torn off the entire exterior and lo and behold, there's been issues for years that were uncovered. So
I imagine we probably run into people that have purchased a home from the original owner too, right? And they're just like, we don't want to deal with a natural material on this house. We want to do something new.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of materials are specifically designed to be less maintenance heavy, but ultimately still trying to mimic wood. Everybody originally had wood siding. Either it was a wood shake or a wood lap siding. So even like vinyl materials oftentimes are just trying to mimic the old wood siding. Like things like fiber cement siding, like James Hardy, same thing. That shake siding, that lap siding, that board and batten is all just trying to mimic the original wood siding that pretty much every house would have used. So, so people are just trying to kind of come up with a more modern thing and something that'll, hold up a little bit better to kind of our harsh environments here, and just require either no maintenance or less maintenance. No maintenance, I'm going to say in quotations because there's no such thing as no maintenance on your house. But there are products obviously that take less maintenance. So,
all right. So could you tell me a little bit about the expected lifespan of some of the different siding materials? So let's start with wood.
Okay.
What are some of the expected life expectancy of wood siding?
Okay. So in our territory, realistically for siding, you're only going to have pretty much two options. You're going to have cedar, and then you can also get cypress. Cypress is going to be way more expensive, not common at all, but we do have homes here that have cypress siding on them. It is the expectation that you're going to get 25 years plus out of that. It is not uncommon to get 50 years out of a wood siding, but all of that comes with very, very stringent installation requirements as well as maintenance requirements.
Okay.
And then, you can go into the whole process of like homes, how we build them now. They're super tight. They create a lot more moisture than older homes did. They don't allow moisture to go in and escape like they used to. So all of that can kind of factor into it as well. But yeah.
What about some of the vinyl siding? What can you expect to get from that?
Vinyl siding realistically is sold as a lifetime product. Lifetime is a subjective term. What oftentimes ends up happening with vinyl is it just gets brittle. Like everything that you put outside, if you leave it in the sun, the UV rays eventually are just going to beat on it enough that it just becomes brittle. You get oxidization. So essentially you go up to the siding and you rub on it and kind of the color will come off.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can paint vinyl siding, you can clean it really well and paint it. It'll last a very long time. It's very much like aluminum siding. I personally think aluminum siding was one of the best products ever invented. It had insulation on the backside of it. It can be painted over and over and over again. It doesn't rot like wood does. The only thing about it is it dents. So anything that bumps into it, it dents. And it is very unforgiving. It's not a siding that you can kind of patch in and patch out. So you can't like remove a piece like you can with vinyl or like you can with wood with aluminum siding without kind of creating some other potential issues. So, but yeah, so you can pretty much expect 25 years plus out of vinyl with ease.
I was not expecting you to say that about aluminum. It seemed like, as somebody who has not been in the industry for that long, it seemed like vinyl was aluminum was one of those things that people look back on like, I can't believe we ever did that. Just because vinyl's become maybe it's cheaper to produce. And
vinyl is definitely cheaper to produce. It's easier to mass produce, and it's also easier to extrude vinyl in multiple applications with the color built into it. So with aluminum, everything's relying on paint. So it is a maintenance product, just like you would have with wood or like you have with Hardy. It is painted. But as far as the sustainability of aluminum siding, I still think aluminum siding is a phenomenal product. It's not widely used. It's not widely available. Many manufacturers just got out of it years ago. And it's aluminum is a volatile product. So, as the kind of the price of metal goes up and down, the price of that product varies wildly. We saw that with 4 years under the Trump administration, we definitely saw, the price of metal go all over the place. Not necessarily it was his fault, but just simply saying that, it's not uncommon to have metal of any kind just be extremely volatile. It can go all over the place. So it's hard to have a product that you want to mass produce and kind of keep consistently price wise. It's really hard to keep it consistent when the volatility of the market kind of has to dictate the overall price.
Yeah, when you're dealing with a global economy where it could wildly
Correct.
swing. Yeah, I could see that.
Yep.
What about some of the hardy products? So talk to me about like the life expectancy of some of those.
Yeah. So I personally love James Hardy. I think fiber cement is a phenomenal product. The one issue we see more often than not is it's like anything, right? So anything that's installed properly to the manufacturing specs is gonna give you a full lifetime. We run into it a lot here because we do live in a coastal environment. Moisture and salt air and everything is a very big issue that we deal with here. We just see a bunch of people that just install things improperly, which makes things fail very prematurely. So a hardy product realistically is a full lifetime siding. You can get 50 years out of it. It does require maintenance like everything does. You are going to have to paint it like a wood siding. But the painting process is much easier because you don't have, it's not an organic product. So it's not going to break down and deteriorate like a wood would. You don't have open grains. So you don't have to go through and like scrape off the old paint. If it's installed properly, 30 years should be easy. And in 30 years, you can probably get away with maybe 2 paint jobs in that 30-year span. The first paint job, it's going to fade no matter what. Everything fades. That first 10 years, you should see minimal fade. In the next, say, 5 years is probably when you're going to start forecasting for that first real good paint job. If you pay for a great paint job, you should easily be able to get 10 years out of that second paint job and then another one to kind of seal off your 30 years. But with proper maintenance, maintaining things like, your caulk joints and everything, because caulk does fail, maintaining all the little bit of maintenance things that come up when you see something obviously break or fall off, go ahead and get it taken care of. But yeah, 30 years easily.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any other materials like slate or any other of the, anything that I have not mentioned yet that we use?
So let's see. So we've talked about wood. We've talked about vinyl. We've talked about aluminum. We've talked about hardy. There are composite materials. So when I say composite, there are other types of plastics that you can use. They now have some cladding systems, which can be PVC. It can be a composite, similar composite material, another kind of plastic. We have metal siding, which isn't quite as common in our area. Again, we live in a kind of a harsher salt coastal environment, but we do have a lot of metal products on the market right now. Full PVC products, great products in theory, could literally install them under the water in the ocean and they're never going to rot or have any issues there. But it is a PVC product, which does tend to expand rapidly in every direction. So a little bit more difficult of an installation process, but still a phenomenal product. And let's see, is there anything I missed? That's pretty much it. I mean, you have some there are some other products out there. There's some concrete tiles style products that aren't really common in our area. Midwest kind of sees a lot more of that stuff than we do, but they make roofing and siding products in like a concrete tile or ceramic tile. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you can go to like things like stucco or drive it.
We haven't even talked brick or stucco.
Yeah, you can do brick and you can do stone. You can composite stone. You got stone that nails up in panels. You got stone that goes up. Literally, the individual stones can be installed with a stainless steel trim nail. You got lick and stick, which is essentially, you put a little mortar on the wall, squeeze it right in there. That's your lick and stick. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different products on the market now. It's almost too much. Like if you go on the internet, you can go out there and a homeowner could go buck wild and research, and you're going to come up with all these crazy ideas for all these products that you think are going to work really, really well together. But yeah, some of them last, some of them don't. Some of them just don't really work in our area because of the salt environment we live in. So
yeah, and there's obviously a reason why there's things like wood, vinyl, fiber cement that have kind of risen to the top as the primary ones that we're discussing.
Yeah, vinyl is by far the industry. It's the market leader. It probably always will be, simply because of the price. You can't really find anything cheaper than a vinyl lap siding. Um, technically it's a lifetime product. You can get 25 plus years out of it with proper maintenance. It's not going to be the same color in 25 years by far. It's not going to be anywhere near the same color. But yeah, we have multi-million-dollar homes here that have vinyl siding on them. I don't agree with that. I think if your home is above maybe 750,000, I don't see any reason why your home should have vinyl on it. But I didn't build it, so I can't say anything.
All right. So far, we've talked some of the signs of deteriorating siding. We've talked about considering the age and the material that was used. I want to talk a little bit about energy efficiency and curb appeal, because if you visually inspect your siding, you're like, no, we're good. And you think about the age of it, and it's like, there's no real reason why I need to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that technology has changed some. So even vinyl siding that was made 20 years ago, I'm assuming there's options today that are even insulated that
Yep.
might be different today.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of those things, regarding energy efficiency and even the increasing the value of your home if you're thinking you're going to be selling it in the next year or two? Or
Yeah. So we'll talk curb appeal first. Obviously, curb appeal is kind of a buzzword, because what you think looks good on your house, not the next person might not think it looks good. The next person comes to the door, thinks it looks just fine. Some people put a lot of effort behind that. Some people don't. Curb appeal is not just the exterior of the house. It's, kind of the entire exterior. It's the driveway, the landscaping, the flowers, the this, the that, the railings. So the last, say, 20 years have been kind of really big for houses having what we call kind of a layered texture for the front of the house. Everybody puts all this effort into the front of their house because that's the part that people see the most. But, it's not uncommon to have, 3 or 4 styles of siding. Like, we can have a lap over here and a board and batten over here and a shake siding over here. And then maybe we'll do some stone accents, and, we'll have 3 or 4, sometimes 5 colors. You'll add some shutters. You can add some window boxes, a trellis over here, a wood garage door. I mean, you can have as much curb appeal as you possibly want. And, you're never going to please everybody. Somebody's still going to walk up and be like, wasn't for me.
sure.
So curb appeal can be kind of, it's in the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It looks good to you. Yeah. If you're looking to sell your house, we see a lot of people that really just kind of need to update the front side of their house. You have a house that's probably 30, 40 years old. Front side of your house probably all looks one shade. The old classic brick rancher with white aluminum siding. It's pretty classic in this area. So like those houses, we usually try to throw like some shake or some board and batten in the gables, and we'll add some color over here, white here, other colors here. Paint the front door, kind of add another little pop of color, different color shutter. Just trying to layer it out, have a bunch of different accents. And so, yeah.
Do you recommend, I mean, I've seen homes that you can tell the person has a very particular style and taste. If they're looking to sell their home, do you typically recommend to people that they go simpler to have a broader appeal? As opposed to like doing higher end finishes, just go kind of more bland? Or
I wouldn't necessarily say bland. I would say that if you're looking to redo the exterior of your house and the goal is to have the kind of mass appeal, then I would be just wise as far as like what colors you go for. They're not quite as popular now, but there was mid 2000s to early 2010s. A lot of the siding manufacturers had like Bermuda colors. It wasn't uncommon to do like a pink siding, like a Bermuda pink, Bermuda blue, Bermuda green, Bermuda yellow. If you're the odd duck out in your neighborhood, as far as like kind of what your house looks like in comparison to the average other home, then yeah, maybe don't go for such kind of a stark contrast if you're trying to sell your home within a relatively short period of time. Um, you know, try not to go super, super crazy. Try to figure out. Honestly, the easiest thing to do is just ask your contractor, what's popular right now. Like, what do you see as far as like color variants? Like, what are you seeing the most of? We install it every single day. I can tell you that blues and grays are the two most popular colors in the last handful of years, outside of white. Anybody who has two pairs of eyes, I mean, can essentially look out and you see that everybody wants that white siding with the black roof and the black this and the black shutters and the black gutters and the black door. Everybody went over the last 4 years. Everybody wants that farmhouse black and white look. It's very nice if done properly. But if it's 4 brand new construction custom homes side by side, and every one of them does white with black accents, it's a little muddled. How do you stand out in a world where everybody wants the same exact thing? So yeah, best thing you can do, ask your contractor. He'll shoot you in the right direction. He'll tell you what's popular. He'll give you a couple of different options. We use a rendering system where we can take pictures of the exterior of your home and we can create a complete 3D rendering for you. We can change almost anything on the outside of your house to kind of give you a better idea. But don't go rocking the boat. Don't go crazy. Don't hyper personalize the exterior of your home, and then in 2 years, can't believe somebody doesn't like the same thing that you like. So
Yeah, you will inevitably sell your home, drive back through the neighborhood 6 months later, and be like, I can't believe they changed it all.
Why would they ever do that? Yep.
All right. We have not yet turned to deciding, okay, yeah, it's time for me to replace my siding. Could you talk to me a little bit about the cost benefit to replacing versus repairing?
Sure. So when it comes to your maintenance cycle, that's usually when we tell people like it's time to replace or at least seriously consider replacing versus repairing. There are times where repairing isn't recommended because there's no way to warrant the repair. Uh, Older vinyl that's 25, 30 years old, that stuff typically is so brittle that you can barely touch it without it cracking. None of that stuff is available. All the technology, as far as the pigments they use, the thickness, the extrusion process, the way they put the color into everything, all of that stuff is upgraded. So it's almost impossible to tie into the older stuff without causing some sort of repair issue or maintenance issue.
And like you said, the
Um,
color is going to fade unless it's been painted. There's
Yeah.
no way you're going to match that color
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah, 100%. And then, honestly, vinyl's not really meant to be painted. You can paint vinyl. I've seen it done successfully. But vinyl was never meant to be painted. So when you paint over vinyl, it does make the actual base, the subproduct, the actual vinyl product act differently. Vinyl expands and contracts rapidly. If you paint it, it now acts differently because it's now got this substance on the exterior that it has to contend with. So it may hold heat, it may expand and contract even worse. You may have issues with it actually breaking down the product even further. So yeah, I don't recommend painting vinyl, but it is done. It is an option. But again, all of that money is, you might as well throw in the air and watch the wind blow it away, because in a few years you're going to have to replace it anyway. So I usually always look at it from the standpoint of like, how much maintenance is it going to take over the next, say, 5 to 10 years? And in that same time period, if let's say that your current project is a $20,000 replacement project, in 10 years, that could be a $40,000 replacement project. So how much money are you going to spend over that next 10-year time frame? And how much of that money is just wasted? There are times where financially people they can't swing it. I get it. We don't hold that against you. But we always try to weigh it against, like, ultimately, what are you going to spend in maintenance over X amount of years before you have no choice but to replace. So we always try to kind of base everything that way.
Gotcha.
And then, every once in a while, we do run across asbestos tile quite often in this area. Asbestos tile it can kind of be patched in, but typically when somebody has asbestos tile in their house, we pretty much always recommend replacement because we don't know what's underneath of that. It's usually layers and layers of siding. Anytime you're going to have multiple layers on a house and you want to replace it, we're going to rip everything down to the substrate. No different than if we were doing a roof. If you go in there and you've got 2 layers on your roof, you got 3 layers on your roof, 4 layers. I've seen up to 6 layers. We're going to rip every bit of that off and get down to the original substrate so that we can protect the house from the original substrate and then build out from there. So yeah. So again, it all comes down to like, what's the maintenance cost? What's the longevity of that product? If it's a 30-year product and you're 25 and you've got to spend, let's say 25% of what the replacement cost is to fix it. I mean, I personally don't see the value in that because whatever you save now is just going to get tacked on to the price at the end of that 5-year term. In 5 years, you're going to have to replace it. You're not going to have a choice. And at which time, the price has just gone up. So we've seen crazy price increasing over the last 5 years. Anybody who sat through COVID obviously knows that nothing is as cheap as it was, pre-COVID. But that's only going to continue to get worse. So
before we move on, I'm about ready to make the decision as the de facto homeowner that yes, it is time to replace it. So I want to hear a little bit about what my options are.
Okay.
We talked a lot about in the roofing episode about how insurance companies at times, like we can get insurance companies to replace roofs for homeowners. Mm-hmm. Does that also work for siding?
It does on occasion. It is a little bit more rare for siding because we don't have the same codes for siding. Surprisingly enough, there is no code that says how many layers of siding you can have. So I've worked on some, we'll call them tenant houses, where essentially they've been, they may be in kind of a lower income or kind of a lower blue class area where that house has been kind of a rental house for the last 50, 60 years. I worked on one specifically. I can remember it in downtown Laurel. That had been a rental property for the last 50 years plus. There was 4 layers of siding on that. And when we got there, we had kind of a little cyclone come through there and it ripped off almost 60% of one whole side of the house and then kind of created some issues on the rest of the house. So, the big red insurance carrier at the time was the carrier, and they came in and they gave us a bunch of repair. They gave us repair money for the whole thing. And it was a struggle to kind of go back, and we ended up having to utilize like the manufacturer's installation products or specifications to say like, we can't install this siding because we don't have a proper substrate. So sometimes you have to go to the manufacturer versus the code. It is possible. It's just a lot harder because the codes aren't as stringent with siding as they are with roofing.
Okay. So it's not going to be as...
It's not as cut and dry. If you see somebody that has a whole bunch of siding off, it's not like, oh, they could file a claim. It's not quite as simple. Delaware is a non-matching state. So like you could have the entire front of your house get replaced through insurance. It could kind of match. It's never going to match 100%. It could kind of match the siding on the rest of your house, but the law basically says that they don't owe to match the siding on the rest of your house. So yeah, it's different.
All right. That is all we have for you today on the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast. Hey, would you please help us get the word out about our show? The best way to do that is to leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, follow us on social media, or simply tell a friend. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Before we go, we want to hear from you. What are some of the questions you have related to exterior home remodeling? Would you please send those questions to info@askproexteriors.com and simply place "You Ask" in the subject. If you are facing an upcoming home project, we hope this episode has empowered you to tackle it with confidence. Remember, knowledge is power, and a little bit of research can go a long way. We'll see you back next week for part 2. But until next time, happy homeowning. The You Ask the Pros Answer podcast is produced in-house by the Pro Exteriors team. Pro Exteriors is the exterior contracting division of Empire Construction Group, LLC. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal advice. For more answers to your questions, please subscribe to this channel and podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Do you have an upcoming home remodeling project? Find more answers to your questions at askproexteriors.com. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Would you please help us out by hitting that subscribe button? That would be awesome. Also, if you never want to miss another one of our uploads, please be sure to hit that notification bell. All right, thanks. See ya.